That's right. KP's Video News. I'm coming back with part two of the Cosby Kelly. This is part two of that because I didn't get a chance to finish earlier today. And so what I'm going to try to do is Cosby Kelly part two because it's a long article, and I really didn't think I'd be doing it any justice by trying to just kind of like skip around and doing anything like that. So here we go. Cosby Kelly part two. And just to give you a rundown, if you didn't see part one, it was expressing, and this is Dr. Umar Umar Johnson, which was basically explaining what was going on in the Bill Cosby and R. Kelly cases, and how they were not, as far as he was concerned, they didn't receive the benefit of the doubt by being tried by their peers. However, they have been tried in the media, as far as them being, exposure being in the media, as far as these stories are concerned. So I guess that's the same thing, just like the Michael Jackson case. It's like everybody heard all the details about what was going on, what may have happened, and these are stories that were released in the news media. But how can you possibly get a fair trial if you have if all the facts, so-called facts, have been released in the news media? So it's like, okay, so I'm picking up on part two, and it says some politically miseducated blacks would dare to ask, why should the black community care whether or not a pedophile and an adulterous swirler are fraudulently convicted by our racist justice system if doing so saves our community from the threat that they both pose to the safety of our sisters? The answer to the question is simple. Bill Cosby and Kelly legal lynchings are not about protecting women from sexual abuse, especially not the black ones. When was the last time you saw a white man do serious prison time for sexually violating a black woman? Rather, these are test cases that the white power structure of America is using to see if they can get the black community to co-sign their campaign of carnage against any black male that it wants to destroy simply by issuing unfounded, counterfeit charges of sexual abuse. Whether Cosby or Kelly is innocent or guilty definitely should matter to us as black people, but it doesn't matter to the power structure. The only thing that they are studying is whether or not the emotional immaturity of American blacks will seduce us into co-signing the legal lynch mobs of America and their biased and equitable treatment of black men in the criminal justice system. The Me Too movement, which may have initially started with some sincere intentions to expose unpunished sex crimes against women, has been weaponized and politicized to a point where it now has the power to ostracize and condemn men simply upon the basis of an unproven allegation. Even Morgan Freeman and Cuba Gooding Jr., black men who are not particularly known for their loyalty to the black community, were also publicly condemned even before a proper trial from a jury of their peers. Tavis Smiley was another prominent black man who was politically neutralized via shenanigans of the infamous Me Too movement that in recent years has served as one of white racism's most effective tools toward destroying heterosexual black alpha males. These unproven allegations are enough to have men fired from jobs, socially maligned, and politically neutralized. Needless to say, black men have been the hardest hit in this new society where protecting blacks has become irrelevant. But protecting everyone else from blacks is the new social movement of our time. Black people cannot afford to turn a blind eye to injustice against our own, even when we feel that the guilt is obvious, because in doing so, we establish a dangerous precedent whereby we communicate to the white power structure that we don't mind white injustice against blacks as long as it is against the guilty party. Well then, who decides beforehand whether or not a particular black man is guilty before trial? The answer is the media. the white-owned media simply stated these emotional temper tantrums, like the one black people threw in the aftermath of the surviving R. Kelly series, serves to distract us from paying particular attention to the details of the case long enough for legal lynching to take place behind the scenes. To be clear, we are not necessarily arguing for a fair trial for R. Kelly's sake alone. We do it because we don't want to see future black men, our sons and nephews who lack R. Kelly's financial and social influence to one day innocently find themselves on the wrong side of the law, falsely accused of doing something they did not do, and then being found guilty purely on accusations, media distortions, and legal misleadings. Remember what we allow them to do to any one of us, they can do to us all. The presidency of a black man, Barack Obama, ironically ushered into America a new war against black masculinity, the likes of which we haven't seen since the Jim Crow era. Under President Obama, police assassinations of heterosexual black men would be emboldened to the point where the so-called law enforcement officer couldn't care less about whether they were being filmed or not. At this very same time, America's first black president would direct his attention away from saving black men and put it squarely upon protecting white women, immigrants, and members of the LGBT community, while working class and impoverished black men were tapping on Obama's window looking for some presidential intervention to address issues of police genocide and joblessness. The U.S. government's leading Negro was too busy stealing the thunder of the black agenda and misappropriating it into the agendas of all other minority groups, most notably the LGBT agenda. During the presidency of a black man, black masculinity would come under extreme attack from all sectors of society. The open promotion in public school of LGBT culture, cleverly disguised as a mission of protection for sexual minorities, supported by President Obama, would serve to undermine black masculinity by indoctrinating young, innocent black boys into the life of same-sex exploration well before puberty, when attraction to the opposite sex usually begins to emerge. Meanwhile, the blackface white feminist movement was re-energized on America's collegiate campuses, brainwashing many young sisters into thinking that black men are the crux of their problems rather than the systematic racism that is the root of black male incarceration, extermination, and economic marginalization. The infamous "I don't need a man" movement has now spilled out of the college dormitories into the black ghettos of America, where even middle school black princesses can be heard discussing the worthlessness and irrelevance of black men in their lives. In corporate, academic, and media circles of gay black male privileges now exist that pushes out strong alpha males in difference to us a more effeminate metrosexual beta male type persona. Even as gangster rap circles, a community that's historically valued and pushed a strong masculine bravado, a softer, more metrosexual energy that promotes effeminate dress, has now taken away. The essence of this article is that this new movement to promote all things black and effeminate and to generate all things black and masculine is not an accident nor coincidence. Rather, it's a new strategy to complete an old age agenda of American power structure to neutralize and destroy black community by removing the masculine principle from the home and society. Most social maladies of black community, with mass incarceration to special education, can be linked to fatherlessness. The presence of strong heterosexual men who value and respect black women and their children is extremely important towards the resurrection of the traditional black community. By promoting same-sex sexuality and terrorizing traditional opposite sexuality in the black community, the power structure hopes to socially engineer a new black community that is led by the members of the white finance, black feminist, LGBT leadership cartel that is hostile toward black alpha males altogether. Yes, such an agenda may sound too fantastic to be achieved in a generation, nor will it be. Eugenics are a patient gang of opportunists, and if the slowing down the agenda in order to evade suspicion is what must be done, then that's exactly what they will do. The past summer, the Pew Research Center reported that teen births for black girls are less than half of what they were a decade ago. In fact, black teenage pregnancy is at its lowest rate in decades. We have always had birth control devices in the black community. To what do we owe this downturn in teenage contraception rates in the neighborhood? Certainly we don't want babies having babies. Nonetheless, the political climate into which our teenagers now live is radically different from the one in which we were reared and requires a deeper assessment into the variables of the influencing behavior of the black community. Black children now live in an era where they are not only free to choose their sexuality, but are in fact encouraged to break away from traditional male-female dichotomy in difference to more contemporary sexual identities such as transgender, gender, queer, and asexual. The question that the black community must ask itself is why? Why is African America and why is America so hell-bent on undermining images of traditional black love while it exaggerates the romantic opportunities that non-traditional same-sex relationships offer? And one necessarily happier in a gay relationship other than in a heterosexual relationship? Well, judging by advertisements in the mainstream media, one might think so. Since Obama took office, the amount of advertisements, television shows, and online content that show traditional positive black male-female loving interactions without sexual contact have markedly diminished. In its place has become a barrage of LGBT-themed television shows, advertisements, and online content. When there are traditional male-female unions on display, they are usually interracial. This message to young black boys growing up in today's society is obvious. You'll be much better served either by dating the same gender, changing your gender, or marrying outside your race. Who really benefits from an entire generation of black boys and girls being indoctrinated in school and outside of school with same-sex relationship propaganda? In a black community already suffering with epidemic absenteeism of black men from the lives of their women and their children, how can convincing even more black boys to abandon their women for a romantic future with another man be any help to our people? In a community where black women already have so few options of successful heterosexual male counterparts for which to choose in hopes of building a family, how can promoting homosexuality and transgenderism of our boys be a blessing? We are literally watching the destruction of the fabric of the black community take place right before our eyes, and with the complicity with the 1964 Civil Rights Act inclusion of sexuality and gender as protected categories, the past decade witnessed a black president take many of the rights of our ancestors fought and died for and handed them over to the immigrants and the LGBT community on a silver platter. The black church, along with our white-funded black community-based organizations, refused to speak out publicly against the assault against the black family for fear that they might have their government grants and handouts canceled. Isn't it absolutely amazing that the black president can, in 4 years, totally eliminate a structural bias and discrimination against the LGBT, but yet, here we are 400 years later, and blacks are still not safe from the slave patrol police system, nor use of the N-word. Bill Cosby and R. Kelly are symbols designated to misrepresent what black masculinity really means. These are two men have become the face of black male heterosexuality in the white media, and most convenient excuses used to denigrate an entire population of brothers who do not molest children and are not interested in chasing after white women. Black women need to be careful in choosing to side with the criminal justice system against their own black men. Whether it's Cosby or Kelly or whether it's your own child's father, black women cannot become an excuse that white ruling class uses as its justification for pillaging an entire community of its heterosexual men. The white man is never the black woman's ally, and the black man is never her enemy. When federal and statewide welfare programs were rolled out to single black women and their children during the 70s and 80s, They served as a powerful propaganda instruments for the white power structure. In the aftermath of the MLK and Fred Hampton state-sanctioned killings, along with the informal demise of civil rights and black power movements, the government sought to recreate its image in the minds of black women. The welfare programs were just the tools that the system needed to earn much of the loyalty from many black women. With more militant yet leaderless young black male revolutionaries left on the streets of America, the Lyndon Johnson, Richard Nixon White House was not about to let up on its war against black male activism. However, they needed to do something to ensure that black women would not come to the defense of their men en masse. Welfare programs would be the material tactic and feminism and psychological tactic to keep black women from demanding the release of the fathers of their children. Although they belonged to different parties, they agreed that black power had to die. It was actually the Democratic White House of Johnson that initiated the war on crime, but his Republican successor Nixon would give the Gestapo movement its teeth. The war against black power quickly transformed into a more acceptable campaign of war against black crime. Fighting black power was unacceptable in a country that claimed it didn't want to see blacks powerless. Therefore, the propaganda machine created the war on drugs, which was actually the war on blacks and the war on other minorities as well. The paradox here is the government is now claiming to be interested in protecting the lives of the very same people whose leaders it spent entire decade murdering. What did Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, Dr. King, Fred Hampton all have in common? They were unapologetic black alpha males whose sole mission in life was to liberate black people. The introduction of social welfare programs to black women was an act of military expediency. No different than Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, it served as a wartime necessity to help achieve a goal that had absolutely nothing to do with helping black people. By dishing out food stamps, WIC, cheap health care, cheap housing, and child support benefits, the government deliberately put a wedge between the black woman and her man. Had the government not come forth with these resources, the black woman would have naturally organized a movement against the incarceration and economic devastation of her man, as any woman would. She naturally desired and needed her man to be by her side to make ends meet and properly raise the children. However, the welfare programs would serve as the government's substitute for the black man in the black woman's life. These programs effectively distracted the black woman from aiding the black man in his fight for economic inclusion and away from mass incarceration. It is almost impossible to destroy an entire population of men in a society that claims equal opportunity for all without first separating him from his woman. A united black community where all members are in agreement that racism is the chief cause of their ills would be a political, economic, and social nightmare for the United States government. This is precisely why the alienation of black men must occur with the promotion of opportunities for black women. This serves as a proverbial bait and switch tactic that has allowed America to evade responsibility for its destruction of the black male by blaming it on personality variables like laziness and a lack of motivation. It's no coincidence that the white supremacist sympathizers like the feminist Oprah Winfrey would rather use her global platform to interview Michael Jackson's privileged white male accusers, but has never hosted a program to address the horrific sexual abuse of boys by white men in the Roman Catholic Church. While she and Gail salivated at a chance to go after R. Kelly and now Russell Simmons, they never thought to expose Harvey Weinstein or Kevin Spacey. If sexual abuse is so important to an American society, why is New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft still cheering for his team at games after a judge conveniently threw out the video footage of his alleged illegal sexual encounter at a Florida massage parlor? Why is Lifetime releasing a Surviving R. Kelly Part 2 series we have yet to see, Surviving Ben Roethlisberger Part 1? This is not about criminal justice. It's about destroying the natural God-given protectors of the black woman, child, and community, the heterosexual black male. Like most distractions, they sooner or later give way unless stronger, more potent ones can be secured. The American white power structure could not hope to keep black women distracted forever from what was doing their black sons simply by issuing petty welfare subsidies. When Bill Clinton's 1994 crime bill went into effect, it helped tear away the thin veneer of hypocrisy that protected the power structure from the black woman's criticism regarding the economic marginalization and incarceration of the black man. Therefore, a new strategy needed to be introduced to keep black women from coming to the public defense of black men. After all, welfare programs were poorly financed and didn't eliminate poverty, but only made it more bearable. Clinton's welfare program, welfare to work programs that came on the heels of President Bush's welfare queen exaggeration, served to distance black women from the power structure. This was viewed as a threat that could push the black woman back into the revolutionary alignment with the black man. Therefore, a new strategy would educationally and economically empower the black woman in a way that the earlier welfare programs could never do. It had to be put into effect, and quickly, in black America today. Due to no fault of their own, black women now out-educate and out-earn their men. This has nothing to do with the heterosexual alpha male's resistance to learn, work, or care for his family. Rather, it was a deliberate act of white power structure to further drive the two genders away from one another by upsetting the natural balance of the black household. By reversing the roles of the black man and woman, by making the black male economically dependent on the black female, it consequently upset the power balance in the home and has given rise to a new black America where conflict between men and women is at an all-time high. Black men are the only men who are systematically out-earned and out-educated by their own women. The resurgence of black-faced white feminism on collegiate campuses has served to help black women misinterpret these social phenomena in ways that exacerbate misunderstanding between black men and women. Simply stated, the U.S. government has effectively made the black heterosexual alpha male economically irrelevant to the black woman. This economic irrelevancy has had dire psychological, social, emotional, and political consequences for the black family and for black children. With the weaponization of child support that took place during the Clinton years, black men could now be arrested for not paying for children with jobs they cannot even find. Needless to say, the American child support system has only served to breed further distrust between black men and black women. Have you ever wondered why professional athletes are the only heterosexual black males that are favorably received in American society? Even still, it's not genuine appreciation, as these men are worth billions of dollars to their white corporate handlers who have a vested interest in making sure they remain marketable and non-threatening to racist whites. Just as the war against black power has refashioned into a more acceptable war against crime, the contemporary war against black masculinity has been recast as a war against black insensitivity to other minorities, notably the LGBT feminist army. So this is, wow. I'm going to have to do part 3. That was 24 minutes. I'm going to have to do part 3. This is going to have to be another part to this. So, hey, wow, this is deep. This is deeper than I thought. And I'm going to have to do part 3. I have to do part 3. Wow. This is heavy. It's heavy. Stay tuned. That's part 2. Part 3 is coming up. Part 3 is coming up.